All right, dude, we are live. What's up, guys? This is Dem Keys, and um, give me a second because I just noticed that my VTuber app is not picking up my sound. Check, testing, testing. Maybe I need to restart this. Yeah, that's okay. Hopefully, restarting the thing on stream is not gonna cause any major issues. Give me a second while I set that whole thing up, and then we should be good to go. Why did that freeze? Hold on. Oh, that's crazy. I need to have all of the windows in focus in order for it to capture this thing. By the way, speaking of terminals, I have something to share. Um, but real quick, let me start up the VTuber app, and then we can continue. Actually, I mean, I'm starting up the app. I can talk, and then oh wow, okay, that started much quicker. Great, awesome. Give me a second now. Let this thing load and check, testing. All right, we are good. Now just let me. Yeah, I think we should be good. Check, testing, check. Dude, with my whole like terminal based workflow that I have going on, considering how much I'm moving towards terminal based stuff, I'm like super what's the word? Encouraged, motivated, tempted. There you go. I'm super tempted to try and set up something within the terminal itself for VTubing. Because okay, my VTuber avatar, ever since I started VTubing, it has never been a humanoid, and I have very little interest in it being a humanoid. I kind of like other concepts, and you can see what's going on stream right now in terms of my VTuber model. This is the kind of stuff that I like, just like abstract concepts, right? It doesn't have to be a humanoid. At most, I was gonna add hand tracking in order to have some kind of movement, and I added this what do you call it? Audio reactiveness. I added the audio reactiveness to have audio reactiveness within the application, just so that my model could respond to any sort of audio input. So it becomes a little more dynamic in that way. But in terms of like expressions, facial expressions, I mean, and whole body movements and stuff like that, I don't really do that with my VTuber model. So I'm kind of tempted to try and set up something in the terminal itself. I need to do research. This idea just occurred to me. Legit, just, you know what? Okay. Um, Real quick, let me, what is this? After stream. Okay. Explore idea. What's the idea? Yeah. Setting up um, something VTuber app like using the terminal and maybe TUIs. See what all is possible. I'm kind of tempted to set up something like that. Though I don't want to completely let go of the Unity side, because there's like a lot more that I can do on the Unity side than I could possibly even imagine doing on the terminal side. But the thing is, just because there is a lot more doesn't necessarily mean that I will be doing it. Or rather, I should say, just because I could be doing it doesn't mean I absolutely will be doing it, if that makes sense. Like there's tons of um, there's tons of features that are available on the Unity side that I can benefit from. But the question is, will I be using it at all? Will I really be benefiting from it? Because like I'm not really using the thing. Though I think another reason why I haven't been using it, and by that logic also not been benefiting from it, was because development was quite slow. That was also one of the reasons why I moved the majority of my development over to the Linux side, even game dev stuff, even Unity stuff. Yeah, even non-game dev stuff, basically Unity stuff, whatever, anything involving Unity. It could be game dev, it could be my VTuber app development. It could be VR chat world building. It could be anything. Anything Unity related, I decided to move it over to the Linux side, and things are so much faster on the Linux side. It's unfortunate that I haven't had the time to actually, get back into doing Unity stuff because I've been busy setting up a bunch of other stuff on the Linux side. But I'm slowly getting there because there was like, dude, I dove into the world of terminal apps and TUI based apps, and there was just so much to explore. There's still so much to explore. That's why I keep getting distracted with various things. One of the things recently was this. So this is a matrix rain. It's a classic effect from the movie Matrix, and this specific program is written in Rust. This specific program is called Rusty Rain. This is an implementation of the matrix rain in Rust. There are a couple of other terminal based animations. There was one that I discovered recently called Tarts. Let me see if I can bring that up. This is a fairly it's a fairly new project, and okay, it's a fairly new project, and it's also a fairly active project. Like the maintainer, the developer, they are actively working on this. I don't know if it would be accurate to say that this is a fairly new project, but like active. Let's just say it's a pretty active project, and the creator is working on implementing a bunch of different animations. Basically, these are all like screensavers for the terminal. So you can have stuff like the matrix rain that I showed. You can have a spinning cube. There's one of, I think, something to do with a donut. I think it's also a spinning donut. Then there's a classic pipes effect. Then what else? There's something to do with maze generation. Let me show the repo. Give me a second. Give me a second so I can load up. Okay, GitHub Tarts. So this is a collection of different screensaver effects that the creator is implementing one by one, and they're also taking suggestions from the community. I don't know if they're accepting. I don't know if they're accepting PRs, pull requests. Yeah, I don't know why I blanked out all of a sudden. Hold on. Tarts Rust, because it's not showing me the right thing. It's showing me something else, which I might also want to check out later. Just a second. I'm pulling the thing up. Why is this so hard to search for? What's going on? Just a second. Let me narrow down this search. Okay, hold up. So there's one called Tart, which is draw ASCII art in the terminal with your mouse. Okay. Oh, by the way, speaking of ASCII art, oh, dude, there's stuff that I need to talk about. But okay, first, hold up. We're gonna do this. I'm gonna show you guys the thing. Um, where's OBS? Here. Okay, so this is the repo for tarts, and here's a list of the different effects that they have. They have animated crabs, they have rotating donut, they have matrix rain. Oh, Conway's Game of Life. That's also an interesting one. Maze generation, Boyd's 3D cube, and pipes. And they have a couple of other, like if you go into issues, you'll notice people have put in requests for stuff, like this, for example. Wait, no, not this one. They put this in themselves. Actually, was this the one that I had seen? Oh yeah, okay. I think they made this. I think they made this themselves. Like I noticed this. I saw this issue yesterday, but I didn't notice that they were the ones that did it. I'd imagine they would be accepting requests as well. Um, hold on, let's see. Like I think other people have made posts, and maybe there have been replies to it. Okay. Either way, um, I'm gonna assume that they might be taking suggestions for stuff to add in, but other than that, they are also working on stuff themselves. Like you can see, they've opened up issues here by themselves, like adding fractals, map generation, and other stuff. Hold on, I'm curious about. I kind of want to find out. Okay, okay. Anyways, yeah, I don't know if they're accepting. I'm gonna assume that they're accepting suggestions. Either way, regardless, this is a cool project. You guys can explore the code base if you want to see how they're implementing all of these different effects. It's really cool. I spent some time looking at the code for some of the effects because I wanted to understand how they are implementing a bunch of these things, and it turns out they're implementing quite a bit, like from scratch. They're not. Um, it's not like they're so okay. When I saw the 3D cube thing, my first assumption was, oh, maybe they're using another library um, that handles the 3D rendering and animation, and then they're like displaying it in this. But no, I took a look at the code, and they're doing all of the calculations themselves. Which I mean, I thought that's pretty cool. Either way, this is one such project. There are a couple of other projects, and this is like I'm exploring the Rust side. There are projects on the C side as well. Stuff like, for example, initially there was a C matrix. There still is. It's not hosted on GitHub anymore. It's hosted somewhere else. I can't remember where. GitLab, maybe. I think so. I don't I don't remember. It's hosted somewhere. That's a pure C implementation of Matrix Rain. Then there was C Bonsai. Actually, C Bonsai is the one that I'd seen on GitLab. I don't remember about C Matrix Rain. If it's still on GitHub or if that is also hosted elsewhere. But yeah, these are some of the effects that you can add to the terminal, and I kind of wanted to work on adding this kind of stuff. Also, when I was looking for tarts, I found this, so I'm curious about this. It says a plug and play transformer module for task agnostic reasoning. Yeah, I should look at this later. I should definitely look at this later. But okay, we are gonna wait. I just realized that I don't have my stream manager open, and so I don't have my chat open either. Give me a second. Stream manager. Okay, cool. Right. So, I was talking about. I have some good news. So here's what I've decided to do. Okay. So yesterday and the day before as well. I was kind of curious about like whether there are games. I knew that there will be games that are terminal based, but I wanted to know like what the extent was. Like, you know, is it just basic games or like basic text based games, or are there more complex things? And I discovered quite a bit. And like the majority of it was thanks to Gemini. Actually, all of it. I was having a conversation with Gemini. That's how I discovered this. Now there are paid games, of course, but there are also open source games, and that blew my mind. There are open source games, and there are communities like centered around these games that actively help build the game, help build like quests and stuff, and then everybody gets to enjoy the game. Um, uh, this introduced me to the concept of like roguelike games. A good friend of mine, um, Little Witch Oz, she is a big fan of like roguelike games. And where was I going with this? Yeah, I'd I'd found out about roguelike games from Oz because she's a fan of these kinds of games. I'd never actually played these kinds of games. And it turns out that there are a bunch of games which, here's the interesting part, right? There are these games that have they have like graphical versions. So like your regular graphics rendering versions where, you know, a window will open up and within that window you have the entire game showing, just like how you would play a regular game, right? How you expect a regular game to look. But some of these games also have a TUI front end. So the same game that you're able to play with GUI, you're also able to play it with TUI if you choose to do so. And I found that really interesting. I'm going to be exploring these games. I found a couple. There was Dwarf Fortress mentioned somewhere. Yeah, in one of those effects. So there's Dwarf Fortress, right? There was also actually I can take a look at that convo that I was having. I don't remember where it was in the list. Give me a second. I need to find that list. It was an interesting convo because I was looking for games that, like, I was trying to understand, you know, what the situation is with terminal based games, not necessarily Linux gaming, but specifically terminal based games. And through that I also found out about, you know, games that are open source, in fact open source games that are much more supported on Linux, but they also have support for stuff like Windows and Mac OS and stuff like that. Give me a second. Let me just, yeah, here it is. So, in the convo, I started out the convo in this way. I said I recently moved my workflow over to the terminal, primarily using CLI and TUI tools. I'm wondering if there are any games I can play on the terminal. What are my options? Never explored this domain. And then Gemini gave a bunch of very good suggestions. Um, uh, it mentioned stuff like, okay, you have your classic arcade games, you have roguelikes, you have text adventures and interactive fiction, you have puzzle games. I also found out that there's something called Z Machine, which it's meant to be an interpreter for games that were made for something else. I forgot what exactly that was, but this is like way back, like 80s and 90s type stuff. Like it's from back then. Um, and eventually people worked on like an interpreter that could run a bunch of these games using, you know, whatever language they use for those games. You could just feed it into the interpreter and those games could then run on this interpreter. I don't know if you have to like do the whole compilation thing and like how things work there. I don't know if at some point maybe someone worked on some kind of compiler that compiles, let's say, the C language to that language, and then that thing can be fed into the Z machine interpreter. But yeah, I found out that that's a thing as well, and there's apparently a bunch of different games that you can play, specifically like terminal based games that you can play through that. I don't remember if I'd seen GUI games through that, but yeah, that was an option as well. There were a couple of ideas given here, games like NetHack, Cataclysm, Dark Days Ahead, something called Bastet, which is like a Tetris clone. Then something for Sudoku, which is called Nudoku. Then ASCII Sector. That was also interesting. It's something galactic, something to do with space exploration. Moon Buggy, SSH Tron, My Man, which is a Pac-Man clone. Then I asked for more suggestions and I got stuff like Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup. I found this one really interesting. I explored Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup. There's another one called Angband, then Ancient Domains of Mystery. I don't think I explored this one. Caves of Kud. I looked into it, but I didn't. I don't think this one was open source. I was looking for open source stuff, so I kind of like mentioned that yeah, I'm looking for open source stuff. There were also other suggestions like Greyhack and Hacknet and something called Ninvaders, and then also Frauds. Okay. So Frauds is how I was led to the Z Machine thing. And then I looked into what what Frauds was and what Z Machine was and stuff like that. I did ask this question. I don't know if I closed the thing. I think maybe I closed it. Hold on. Let me open up that conversation again. And okay, Frauds. Infocom, Z Machine, and interactive fiction. I think this was a conversation. Yeah. Okay. So I asked the question. I'm looking into frauds. What is Infocom and Z Machine? So this was the explanation that was given. Infocom was a software company founded in 1979 by staff and students from MIT, known for producing a large body of interactive fiction or text-based adventure games. Their most famous title was Zork, which was so large and complex that it required a novel solution to be ported from the mainframe computers it was created on to the popular but less powerful personal computers of the era. To solve this problem, they developed the Z machine, a virtual machine that could run their games on various computer systems. Instead of rewriting the game for each new computer, they wrote a single program called the Z machine interpreter for each new system. The interpreter would then read and execute the game file, which contained the game's code and data. This ingenious system allowed Infocom to release games for many different computers with minimal effort, cementing their place as a leader in the interactive fiction genre during the 1980s. So I found this bit really interesting. But yeah, okay. So I was exploring stuff like this. I'm going to be exploring more stuff. So something that I'm a lot more interested in here is I'm going to look into NetHack. I'm going to look into Cataclysm Dark Days Ahead. And another one, hold on, where is it? Uh, DCSS, Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup. I'm going to look into that as well. And after that, I was interested in exploring strategy games to see what the options are there. And I was like, okay, I don't mind even if there's like GUI stuff going on. I don't mind if it's not terminal based. If I'm just able to open it up in GUI, as long as it's lightweight. And it turns out quite a lot of these games are actually pretty lightweight. Of course, they don't, have like flashy graphics. They have graphics, that's it. They don't have flashy graphics. Um, but to me, what's important is that they're going to run on the machines that I'm trying to run them on. So I'm willing to explore them. I found one called OpenRA, which is supposed to be inspired by games like Command and Conquer and Red Alert and stuff like that. So I'm going to be exploring that and Cataclysm and Dungeon Crawl Stone Soup. Also ASCII Sector. That was kind of interesting. Okay, now um oh, Free Orion. That was another one that I found interesting. I think I'd looked into that as well. Um then there's another one called the Battle of Wesnoth. I haven't looked into that yet. I'll look into it. Hey there, Zainar. I'm currently learning Git stuff, relearning, let's say, Git stuff, but I'm doing it through, hold on, I'm doing it through Git UI, which is here. I'm doing it through Git UI because in the past I've learned the basics of Git, but there were features that I didn't get around to learning stuff like branching and remotes and stuff. So every now and then I would find myself coming back to learn that stuff. And yeah, this time I'm now that I've moved the majority of my workflow over to the terminal side, I was like, okay, I've started using Git UI on the terminal to do Git stuff. So let me try relearning Git basics and also learn branching and remotes, but this time do it through Git UI instead of being stuck in like the Git CLI. But yeah, welcome to the stream. Hello, hello. We are gonna get started with this in a little bit. I was just talking about exploring games on the terminal side, and yeah, okay. So that brings me to the next thing. I'd been meaning to start a game dev project again. I wasn't sure what framework I wanted to go with. By default, I was going to go with Unity because that's just like that's in terms of game dev, that's my go-to. That's what I know. But then I was like, okay, what if I try something different? And I've been looking for excuses to practice Rust. So I was like, what if I try making a terminal based game? Because there are TUI frameworks like Ratatouille, for example, which you can use to make TUIs with Rust. And so I was like, okay, what if I try to use one of these things to make a terminal based game? It would be very limited. It would be incredibly limited considering that you're doing stuff within the terminal. But like, I want to see what that experience is going to be like. I want to try and make a game using a TUI library and using various TUI drawing tools or ASCII art drawing tools. Um, okay, Zanar, you said, yeah, I've been doing that a bit the same as I transition to Git for decentralized storage and updates. Hell yeah. But I'm still stuck in VS Code land. There's nothing wrong with that. There's quite a lot of people use VS Code. I moved from VS Code because my machines were starting to become old and they weren't able to handle VS Code as well. I mean, they were still able to run VS Code. It's just that I didn't like having to deal with lag, having to wait for some time until the program starts up and then stabilizes and stuff. To be clear, usually these are not really issues that people have. You only have these issues when you're running older hardware. So as the years go by, programs become more and more demanding on your system. And if you're using older hardware, then programs that were running smoothly once upon a time, now suddenly they're going to be running much slower. So that's why I started to move over to the terminal side. There was also the fact that once I discovered that on the terminal side, there's like things are just so much faster. I kind of just got sucked into that rabbit hole, and I just kept on going in, like exploring more and more TUI based stuff to figure out what all can I do in the terminal so that I can avoid doing GUI stuff entirely. And it turns out that there's quite a bit of stuff that you can do in the terminal. Like for example, um, let's open up Yahtzee. Yahtzee is it's a TUI based, it's a terminal based file manager, which you can use to explore your file system. So you're not stuck using stuff like the ls command. You can actually open up an interactive file manager. What hardware am I on? Okay, so I have 4 machines, all old machines. The machine that I'm streaming to Twitch from right now, that machine has maybe, I don't know, 8 GB of RAM, I think, and probably a Core i5 processor or maybe a Core i3 processor. I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to check that. But on this machine, I can. Oh, it also has a. I think it's an MX 550 NVIDIA GPU. But the issue with this machine, this specific machine that I'm streaming to Twitch from, is that it had like a failing hard drive because of which it was not stable at all. So I had to keep like a limit to the stuff that I was able to do. I have another machine, another desktop, which is it's got 12 GB of RAM and a Core i5 processor. I've got another laptop which has 6 GB of RAM and a Core i5 processor. And then I've got a very old desktop, like really, really old desktop. When I say old, I mean, I'm talking about like a dual core CPU, a dual core processor, and 2 GB of DDR2 RAM. Like that's how old this machine is. And I'm running Ubuntu Studio on it. And in order to make things run more smoothly, instead of using the Ubuntu Studio desktop environment, I switched over to using just a window manager. So I'm not having to deal with any lag there. I kind of want to make a video on this. Actually, I've been meaning to make a video on this thing. I just need to find a good way to like present the entire video, but I'm super excited with the way that I've set this thing up. But that's what I'm doing. Um, Old school indeed. Do you enjoy making it all work with old hardware? Is it more budget limitations? I would say so. Okay, it's a couple of things. First of all, yes, I do not have the money to buy new machines, and any of these machines that I've gotten, they've been gifts from my family or from friends. The oldest machine that I have, I got it from my brother when he got like a newer machine, and this was like a really old machine that he wasn't going to use anymore. So this is like 25 year old hardware, right? So this is like a really old machine. And then there's the desktop. That was a gift. The laptop was a gift. The other laptop was also a gift. These are all gifts that were given like over the years. Um, one of the laptops is like 10 years old, I think. Another laptop is 5 years old. The other desktop is also like 10 years old, maybe. This is all old hardware. The thing is, I never throw away old hardware, old computers and laptops. As long as they work, I don't throw them away. I just install Linux on them because Linux is much more lightweight than Windows. So I'm able to get quite a bit of stuff done if I can just install Linux on it and run some kind of programs. So for example, this like 25 year old PC that I have, I'm running Ubuntu Studio on it, and at most I'm able to open up Firefox and watch a Twitch stream. And any more than that, and I might start to like fill up. I might start to fill up the memory. But yeah, I'm able to make use of that system as just an entertainment system. And then the other machines, like the desktop that I have with 12 GB of RAM, I use that to host all of the tmux sessions. And then I SSH into that desktop from the other machines and attach to the tmux sessions so that I can do various things on multiple machines. Reminds me of trying to use a Raspberry Pi as a desktop. That is actually, yeah, that's something similar because Raspberry Pi also has like there's a Linux build that works on Raspberry Pi, and quite a few people, they do use Raspberry Pi as like just a, like for example, if you, so okay, Raspberry Pi would actually work really good for this sort of setup that I have going on, where like I have this desktop with 12 GB of RAM, and I'm hosting tmux sessions on it, right? So I can have this machine running, but I can also have a Raspberry Pi connected to the same network so that I can attach to one of the tmux sessions and do work from the Raspberry Pi, but do the actual work on the desktop. So the Raspberry Pi then acts as basically just a terminal, like an actual physical terminal. It's just it's just something to take input and give output. Yeah, Pi OS is a Debian offshoot. I don't remember which one I had looked at. I think I had looked at Ubuntu specifically, but yeah, there are a couple of other OSs. I'd actually looked into Raspberry Pi like knockoffs to see if I could get them any cheaper, and I found a couple of them. I found stuff like Orange and Banana, and there were a couple others as well. At some point I might buy one of those. Let's see if this 25 year old machine at some point starts to like fail. I mean, it's been failing for years, but like it's mainly been the RAM. At this point in time, if this thing fails, if the RAM fails, then that's it. I have to like give up this machine because, dude, in 2025, finding DDR2 RAM is going to be like buying antiques. It's not going to be the smoothest. Okay, orange pie is a classic, especially out of Chinese factories. They have a lot of SBCs. What are SBCs? What was I doing? Oh, yeah. Okay, while you answer that, let me get back to the thing that I was saying about game dev. So, I had the idea to try and make a game using TUI based frameworks, more specifically Ratatouille and Rust, because Ratatouille is a Rust based TUI framework. And I want to see how far I can go in terms of game development with that kind of a setup, because I don't know, it seems kind of exciting because I am learning about oh, single board computers. Okay. Yeah, I was okay, so I was at some point I was looking into um basically single board computers um to see what all choices I had, but I feel like one of the reasons I didn't explore that a lot more is because you're right, there's like a lot of different types of um there's a lot of different factories that are manufacturing different types of single board computers, but I didn't explore a whole lot of them because like there's a bunch of them that like buying them becomes more like going to specific websites. Now, if I can get stuff that would be available on those websites, if I could get it off of something like AliExpress, for example, then I would definitely buy it. Though I should look deeper into that because I feel like a lot of my research has been centered around Raspberry Pi, and that's why I was led to stuff like Orange and Banana. But maybe I could just look for single board computers instead, and like specifically ones that are able to that have some sort of Linux based distribution, some sort of Linux based OS. Maybe I might find something better. But yeah, yeah. Getting back to this, I'm excited to start up this project. So I feel like I'm going to be doing this game dev project with Rust instead of doing it with C Sharp and Unity. It's going to be a different experience because I'm not using a graphics framework of any sort. I'm not using a game engine either. I'm trying to create a game feel using a TUI based framework, using a TUI framework. Um, I'm lucky to not be budget limited for parts, currently more lacking the motivation to do coding and development. Yeah, I wish I had the budget. I definitely don't wish that I was lacking motivation. That sucks. I hope you get the motivation back at some point. Um, but yeah, I mean, it would be good to have the money to, buy more. Though, okay, you know what? I feel like if I did have the money to buy more powerful hardware whenever I wanted, I wouldn't be motivated to explore all of this stuff that I've explored because I cannot imagine putting in the time and effort to explore the terminal based workflow if I didn't absolutely need to. Like being fully honest, I explored it more out of need because I didn't want to deal with lag a whole lot, and I was having to deal with lag quite a bit. That's kind of why I started exploring the terminal based workflow. And then I realized that things are so much faster on the terminal There might be certain limitations, definitely. Aesthetically, there might be certain limitations. But keeping that aside, things are just so much more faster on the terminal compared to GUI. And I'm not saying in general, specifically in my situations, anything GUI related tends to be a lot slower than TUI related or even terminal related. Like for example, on Linux, when you hit the or specifically on Ubuntu Studio, which uses the KDE Plasma desktop environment, when you hit the Windows key, it brings up the start menu, or Ubuntu Studio's version of the start menu, in which you have like a bunch of different categories in which you can select various programs and stuff. Um, that menu alone is so slow. Like if I press the Windows key, I'm gonna have to wait for a good like 5 seconds before that menu comes up. And I'm saying 5 seconds, but sometimes it's 10 seconds, sometimes it's more. There have been multiple situations where GUI related stuff was just incredibly slow, but then I come to the terminal and it takes like it is fast. It is incredibly fast. I work full time, so buying more stuff still doesn't give me the time to use. That's, I feel that not having the time to want to do like all of the stuff that you want to do, that sucks. Necessity is a huge driver of success. True. Linus T made Git in 3 days because he needed code versioning ASAP. Yeah, yeah. Yo, like this, okay, so after he made this, I don't know what features his version of Git had, but yeah, he made it based on his need. I remember watching a video where he was talking about this thing. He eventually handed off the project to somebody else who then carried on the development and made Git what it is today. I don't remember, no, not remember. I don't know what all features Linus had added by himself, like in the initial Git version, but I'm assuming it had like, at the very least, it must have had like the basic adding commits and creating branches and stuff. I don't know if like the more advanced stuff got added later, or if he had added the advanced stuff in his work. Actually, I should talk to Gemini about that to see what the initial version was like before the handoff and what got added later on. But yeah, I want to explore game development in Rust, but through TUI based apps. I also wanna I also wanna make, so I don't want to make this just Linux based. I wanna make it supported on Windows as well. I believe Ratatouille works on Windows. I'm gonna need to make sure that whatever frameworks I'm using, they are supported on both Linux and Windows. I might have Mac support. Problem is I don't have a Mac machine to test with. So I don't know if I'm going to be adding Mac support. I definitely have Windows and Linux to test with. So as long as these frameworks work well with the, I mean, they work well on Linux for sure, but as long as they work well with the Windows terminal, we should be good. Yeah, he only did the initial framework, and has just been keeping watch since. Cool, cool. So, um, what was I, what was I saying? Yeah, dude, at some point later, we are going to be exploring Ratatouille. We are definitely going to be exploring Ratatouille because I need to learn, and this is going to be part of my like learning and relearning Rust as well, um, because I kind of have to relearn Rust. It's one of those things where I come back to Rust every now and then because I'm not practicing it enough, so I don't remember a bunch of this stuff. Though, I mean, now if I open up something, if I open up like a Rust source code file, I'm going to be able to read most of the code. I'll be able to write very basic Rust code, but then there's a bunch of other stuff that I still need to learn and practice and wrap my head around. Um, okay, so here's what I've done, right? In my list of tasks that I have, one of the tasks is that I'm gonna learn at least one Rust chapter through Gemini because I set up a Gemini prompt to teach me Rust, and I explained it that hey, I kind of know the basics of the syntax, but there's a bunch of like the more advanced features that I don't know. There's also a bunch of the basic features that I don't know that I want to explore and understand properly. So prepare a course for me with a bunch of chapters for each of those topics. Explain the topic in each chapter. Explain the topic, and then give me some sort of exercise to practice what you have just explained to me, and then allow me to jump between chapters. I'll tell you which chapter to load up, and you load it up for me, and then we'll explore that chapter. And that's worked out really well so far, to be honest. Like learning stuff through Gemini is it's a different experience. I literally just I crafted a prompt and told Gemini that you have to behave in so and so way, and you have to do so and so things when I give so and so command, and it's like, yeah, sure, okay, cool. Any reason you don't follow a pre-written Rust guide? I did actually. Wait, hold on. I missed some messages here. Knowing what's going on in the code is a great start. I wouldn't even know where to start with Rust. I've written almost strictly in Python. Any reason you don't follow any reason you don't follow a pre-written Rust guide? Um, Also, AI enabled learning is super efficient for sure. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why I encourage people to do their research through LLMs, at least tech related research, because you don't like you have to worry less about them hallucinating and like giving BS info when the information is already like widely established. Like if the information is widely available on the internet, then the LLM is definitely going to learn it much more better. Things can sometimes be a little bit tricky if you're talking about like specific tools, like let's say Git UI, for example. It might get some information wrong here and there, but if you're asking it to teach you a programming language, it can teach you the language. You can probably even ask it to teach you C from scratch, and it'll do a great job of teaching it because there's just a plethora of material available online, which I'm pretty sure, that's what has been scraped to teach the LLM, to train the LLM. As for your question about um, any reason if I don't follow a pre-written Rust guide. So I did initially learn, and I recommend people to check that guide out. Give me a second. Let me bring the thing up. The Rust website itself has a very useful, a very helpful Rust book, multiple books actually. One of them is called Rust by Example, in which they teach you each of the Rust topics by giving you example programs, tiny little example snippets of code, and they explain like what's going on in each of them. It's they're those are very like concise. They don't go into like very heavy detail. Then you have the actual like Rust manual itself, which explores each of the topics in heavy detail. And then there was another kind of book, I don't remember what it was called. And all of these are from the Rust website itself. They're available from the Rust website. Hold on, let me bring up the website so I can show you guys. I would definitely recommend checking out the book. My approach has been to learn. So I initially started learning from the book, and this was much before, because I've been learning Rust like on and off every now and then for the past couple of years. It's just that Rust was in the past, it was always just like a fun language that I decided to explore. I didn't really go too deep into it. But then eventually I was like, you know what? Let's try going deep into it. Let's practice stuff with this. Let's build stuff with Rust. And then I tried to like join it to other stuff that I was doing, like game development and data science and machine learning. And it turns out that for each of those things, you do actually have Rust frameworks available. Give me a second. I'm just opening these up so I can show you guys. They have on the Rust website itself. Um, yeah, I think this is it. Yeah, I'm just gonna zoom out so you guys can see it. Okay, so if you go to the Rust website, they have like a learn section. In the learn section, you have these three choices. You have the book, then you have something called the Rustlings course, and then you have Rust by example. I don't think I've checked out the Rustlings course, but I did explore this. I initially started with Rust by example. If you look here, they have it's like a different way. So Rust by example is a more concise way of exploring the language. And if you're like me, you're very impatient and you just wanna like start exploring everything, then you probably want to go with Rust by example because you'll explore everything and then you can take your own time and learn more and more details about various things that you have learned at your own pace. You don't have to learn a massive amount of information about a single topic in one go. You can do it based on your need. So this is Rust by example. Then you have the Rust book itself. This is where it goes into a lot more detail when it comes to various topics like ownership, for example. And I don't think I ever touched the Rustlings course, so you guys can check that out as well. That might be small exercises to get you used to reading and writing Rust code, recommended in parallel to reading the official Rust book. So okay, this is another good option that you have. Now, in my case, what I wanted to do was um, I wanted to try learning from a language model. I wanted to try getting Gemini to teach me because for me, I'm fortunate enough that I already knew the syntax, the basic syntax of Rust. So, and I already did a bunch of reading on Rust. I know about various tools and the Rust ecosystem and stuff like Cargo, for example. I already knew about a bunch of these things, so I didn't have to worry too much about not getting like a lot of information. And so that's why I decided to give Gemini a try. And I was pleasantly surprised with how it formed the course for me. That is why I actually recommend people to give that a try as well. And I found that that works really well for me, much more than reading a bunch of the information at once, which is what you would be doing through the book. I guess it's just that my attention span is so short that I jump from one topic to another very quickly. If I'm on one thing for too long, then I'll probably just get bored with it and then move on to something else. I think that might be part of the reason. Though, okay, so I'm saying this about like Rust. I knew Rust syntax beforehand before I decided to try out the try out getting Gemini to getting Gemini to getting Gemini to teach me. Why was that so hard to say? Getting Gemini to teach me Rust before I before I tried it out. I already knew the Rust syntax. However, I'm trying the same approach with Lua. I'm learning Lua stuff specifically for NeoVim, just so I can understand the config files and setting up plugin specs and stuff like that in case I ever need to customize something in NeoVim. And I've been having a good experience with that as well so far, because it's teaching me what I need in order to just get started with Lua, and then anything that's more advanced, if I need to learn it, I'll I'll go look for it myself. Now, your specific question about like a pre-written Rust guide. So I loved the Rust guide, the pre-written Rust guide, but I did not like the pre-written Lua guide. So when I was exploring Lua and I was trying to learn from the Lua documentation, I don't know if I just did a bad job of looking for a proper guide, but when I was looking at that documentation, it seemed like way too much detail to be getting into as a beginner in the language. And I just wanted to get started with the language. I don't know, maybe it's just me being impatient. Maybe I'm just used to a different way of teaching, but I just wanted to get into the language. And when I read that documentation on the Lua website, it just, there was just so much information, which I, I don't know, it made me get impatient to the point that I was like, yo, I need a different way to learn this language because I don't think I have the patience to read all of this stuff on this website. Of course, you should be reading like a bunch of the stuff, but like it took long enough and didn't get into the meat of the stuff. It didn't get into the practical stuff quick enough that I got impatient and I was like, let me try learning through Gemini. And learning through Gemini, I do real quick. I picked up stuff real quick from it because it focused on like specific practical things. And if I needed information, then I could ask it for the information. But yeah, yeah, that's kind of why I'm using Gemini. Gemini is one way to learn. Learning it through AI powered tools is definitely one way. But at least when it comes to Rust, I would say that yeah, these books, the pre-written guides, they are actually pretty great. They are amazingly done. Um, I don't know if I don't know if like the community was involved with the making of these books, or if yeah, I don't know if it was like a community effort, or if it's specific people that have made those guides, but they're good. They're actually pretty great, and they worked for me for some time. But like now, I kind of want to try this. Anyways, I'm just going in circles now. Let's get back to learning about learning Git through Git UI. So yesterday we did. Holy shit! We are 1 hour into the stream and we haven't started the main stuff. Yesterday we give me a second. Let me hydrate and then we can continue. Do you study or work in software? Seems like you have the passion to make it work. Sorry for monopolizing the time. No, that's fine. Don't worry about it. I mean, I'm streaming. Uh, I don't mind chatting. I don't mind chatting on stream. I don't discourage that at all. Um, in fact, with the amount of talking that I do on stream, I might as well be in just chatting. But yeah, to answer your question, um, do you study or work in software? Well, no, I IRL I do IT stuff, but not necessarily software development. It's most of my software engineering and software development stuff is it's basically hobbies, and all the stuff that I've learned, it has been mostly out of passion because I enjoy it and because I'm willing to learn. I'm working on 3D mapping at the moment, and it's not as fun as learning about new things. That's interesting. 3D mapping what exactly? Let me look for this convo. Yesterday we yesterday we finished learning about branches, and that was an interesting concept. Because after the stream ended, I decided to practice some some branching related stuff, and I ended up with this interesting situation. Give me a second. Let me. Uh, where was it? What was I going to show? Oh, yeah. So in NeoVim, right now we are on this. This is feature. Are we on like a different branch? Or did I merge? Merge branch. Hold on. Hold on. Let me merge branch, add new feature. At some point, yeah, at some point maybe yeah, okay, what about, because okay, I merged. Wait, let's try switching to this branch and see. I wanted to show you guys the merge conflict that I had when merging, not merging branch A into main, but merging the main branch into branch A. Because I wanted to see what's going to happen in that situation. And yeah, yesterday, actually, I think this we explored this yesterday, shortly before the stream abruptly cut out because my OBS just decided to disconnect, and it stayed disconnected long enough that the stream disconnect protection thing, it ran out. And at that point I was like, there's no point in restarting the stream because I'm not going to be streaming for much longer. So I was like, okay, let's do it tomorrow. So anyways, I what was I saying? Yeah. So I did some research on, this was like before the stream crashed. We had found out that merging main into branch A is definitely different from merging branch A into main. And at that time, I also realized that I was looking at it in the wrong way. Because when I was talking about, or when I would be thinking about a merge happening, I would be thinking about the branch itself disappearing. That's why I was like, okay, what is merging into what? And are we going to lose something if the merge happens? No, we don't lose anything. Um, Generally, you want to merge branch A into main because you're creating a separate branch to work on a separate feature. And once you're done with that feature, you can then merge that into the main line, right? But then there might be situations where you also want to merge main into whatever branch you're working on. And that might be to keep the branch up to date with the latest stuff that's happening in the main line. So I was practicing that part. Um, I don't know the if the commit graph that you see on the right side with Siri is showing that very well. Because if you look at this here, it says merge branch, add new feature. Where's the other merge that it happened? Did I do that here? Oh, okay. No, I didn't do that here. I did that on I did that on I did that in like on a different machine. We can actually do that here. I can set up a merge conflict thing to show you guys. It basically just shows that, oh, okay, the main branch was, in the main branch you had this text, and in the other branch you have that text, and it puts both of those both of those pieces of data right there, and it tells you that, okay, this is your merge conflict. I was expecting it to fail because of the merge conflict. It didn't fail. It allowed me to move forward, but it formatted the thing in a different way. It added both the pieces of data there, and it added markings to tell me that, okay, there's so and so conflicts. You resolve them however you want, and now the merge is happening. I need to do more merging stuff to see. Okay, Zanar, you said 3D mapping the ground. I work with LiDAR data to scan the earth and create 3D surfaces. That is interesting. Now, that's actually really interesting. Okay, merge just adds the code and resolves conflicts, right? If you want to get the main code into a branch, you would make a new branch, right? So I'm by no means an expert. I'm still learning Git myself, but this is what we learned yesterday, and this is what I've understood so far in terms of branching. You have the main line, you have the main branch, right? If you want to work on a new feature, you create a separate branch, and then you switch to that branch, and then further from that point, any commits that you make, they're going to be happening on that branch. They won't be happening on the main branch. If you want to make commits on the main branch, you have to switch to the main branch, and then any commits that you do will be happening on the main branch. Now, when it comes to merging, you you want to switch to the branch that you want to merge another branch into. So if you want to merge branch A into the main branch, then you switch to the main branch, and then you are able to merge branch A into the main branch. What I was kind of confused about and curious about and also concerned about was, is there a chance that I might accidentally reverse the order of the merging? Like, is there a difference between merging branch A into the main branch and merging the main branch into branch A? And then I found out that yes, there is a difference. Um, when you merge branch A into main, then you're basically bringing all of the changes that were done in branch A now into main, and you're switching to main, and any further commits that are going to happen, they'll be happening on main. I mean, assuming you've switched to the main branch. However, if you are merging main into branch A, then you're not doing that to merge any features, any new, well, I mean, yeah, you could be doing it to merge features, but you're more so doing it to make sure that the this branch A is up to date. You're not doing it so that you're not doing it because you've finished working on a feature in branch A and you want to merge it into main. Like, they're two different purposes. They're both possibilities. They're both possible things that you could do, but they serve two distinct purposes. Okay, so um, let's explore let's explore remotes, the concept of remotes. I'm not going to be doing, I mean, I could be doing it, but like, no, I'm not going to be doing um, remotes over the internet. I'm going to be doing local remotes just for the sake of like practice. I'll set up local remotes. So the idea with remotes is that you can have the remote repository in one place, right? And then you can create clones out of that remote repo. And then each of those clones, those people, they have their own working copies, and they can do their own work. So you pull data from the remote in order to get like a more fresh version, a more up to date version of the data. And after you're done doing your work, you can actually push these changes that you have done to the remote as well, as long as you have the appropriate permissions and stuff like that. And this is actually how stuff works on GitHub as well, because when you clone the repo, the remote in that case is the repo that's hosted on GitHub's servers, and you are cloning that repo, and then you're pulling that data, and eventually you will be pushing data as well. Okay. Okay. It was asking ready to connect your local repository to a remote one and collaborate with others. Okay, I'm ready to move on to the next chapter. But okay, so this is an interesting thing. Okay, I know that in terms of remotes, you can do local remotes and you can also do, I don't know what the other one is called. I don't know if it's called global remotes or something else. Um, but yeah, you can do local remotes, which are remotes on your local file system. And then you can also do remotes um, which are accessible over the internet via SSH and whatever, Git tools that are available for that. I wanted to focus on the local stuff. However, I also want to see, I'm curious about which path which path Gemini is going to take. Is it going to take the local one, or is it going to make me do the SSH thing? Eventually, I'm going to make it. I want to see if it even mentions that both of these things are possible. I know both of these things are possible. I want to see if it mentions both these things are possible. Let's see. Okay, chapter 5, working together, remotes and pushing/pulling. So far, we've only worked with a local repository, which is great for personal projects, but for but the real power of Git lies in collaboration, and that's where remotes come in. A remote is a copy of your repository hosted on a server on the internet, like GitHub, GitLab, or Bitbucket. It's a central hub for team collaboration and an essential backup of your work. Okay. The core the core remote operations are pushing, which is sending your committed changes from your local repository to the remote, and pulling, which is bringing changes from the remote repository down to your local repository. Performing remote operations in Git UI. Git UI makes this process simple, but there's one key command you'll need to use the Git CLI for, which is adding the remote itself. Git UI does not have a built-in feature for this. Okay, all right, good to know. Git remote add name and URL. Okay, that's the command. We will use the common convention of naming the main remote origin. For example, git remote add origin, and then so on. Oh, that's the name. Okay, all right, cool. Pushing. Press P on the main Git UI screen. A dialog will pop up with so and so. Okay, then pulling. Pulling fetches the latest changes from the remote without merging them into your branch. This is great for seeing what's changed before you integrate them. P after a fetch pulls the changes you just fetched, and Shift P performs a fetch followed by a merge in a single step. This is the most common command for bringing your branch up to date. Okay, right. So I'm going to stop it right there. Um, hold on. I have no access, which is kind of funny that I'm saying this to Gemini while actively talking to it through the web interface, but I'm just going to say I have no access to the internet. Um, isn't there something? Isn't there something I could do locally? I wanted to suggest the local thing. That's a fantastic question. Yes, you absolutely can and should do this locally. Practicing with a local remote is a great way to understand the concepts of pushing and pulling without needing a server or an internet connection. The trick is to use a special type of Git repository called a bare repository, which acts like a server-side remote. A bare repository doesn't have a working directory, only the Git folder and its contents. Setting up a local remote. Let's create a new repository that will serve as our remote. You'll need to do this in your terminal. Navigate to the parent directory. Okay. Create the bare remote repository. Okay, let's try that. So in my case, that would be, hold on. So we have to go into some repo, right? So we can launch this again. This is Siri. This is, okay, cd scratch some repo. Oh, actually, yeah. In here, I want to do some underscore repo o1 remote. Some underscore repo o1 remote. And then we cd into some repo o1 remote. And we do git init bare. Initialized empty git repository and so and so. Okay. Um, just a second. Okay. Right. So we have initialized, okay, you now have a local empty repository that's ready to receive pushes, just like GitHub. Add the local remote to your course repository. Go back, go back into your Git UI course directory. Okay, in my case, it's some repo, and add the new bare repository as a remote. We'll name, we'll name it local remote. All right, let's do that. Hold up. How, by the way, this is the Rusty Rain thing. I'm going to be installing tarts here as well. I had installed tarts on the other machine, but I didn't install it here yet. And shout out to the creator because they are definitely putting in a bunch of effort for this very niche thing, if I'm being honest, because at least from what I've discovered, there's a massive community centered around terminal users, but like a lot of like these kinds of tools, you have a lot of the older tools, but like a lot of the newer tools, it takes some time for them to gain traction. Like for me, I'm interested in the aesthetic stuff, but like not a lot of people tend to be too interested in it. So maybe it might be harder to gain traction, but like I'm hoping that their repo it kind of gains traction over time because like they're putting a lot of effort into it. By the way, speaking of aesthetics, I um so I was trying to explore ways that I could create terminal based artwork that I could use in the terminal based game that I'm making. Um, and for that, I was like, okay, let me see if there are any tools available. There are. One very widely used tool is something called dir draw. This is this is a terminal based ASCII art drawing tool, and like it legit has tools that let you basically paint on a canvas, the canvas in this case being the cell grid that the terminal provides. Not only that, you also have mouse support, so you're not limited to just moving the cursor around with the keyboard. You can actually use both the mouse and the keyboard. So you can use the mouse to move the cursor around and use various keyboard shortcuts to, like, uh, drop certain types of marks or erase stuff or whatever. It's pretty interesting. I'm definitely going to be exploring that more. There are a couple of things that I need to explore. There's Ratatouille for the actual TUI thing, because that's going to be the entirety of what I'm going to be using for building the game, for the game like aesthetics. Then um, there's going to be Dirt Draw or whatever other tool I might find in the future for actually drawing the ASCII art. And then there's also going to be other tools like I forgot what that tool was called, Kira, I think, for doing audio stuff, because Ratatouille is it's for building TUI. It may not necessarily have a very robust set of tools for audio stuff. It may not have any tools. I don't know if it has any tools for audio related stuff. Even if it does, I don't think it's going to be very I don't think it's going to be a very sophisticated set of tools, because it's meant for TUI, so that's what their focus is going to be on. Their focus is not going to be on audio. This is my assumption. I need to explore it. Either way, because I'm doing this in Rust, so I have the liberty to integrate various different frameworks, and that's actually something that I'm really excited to explore. This ability to just integrate different types of frameworks into the project and not be very limited. So for drawing graphics, I can use Ratatouille. For doing audio, I can use Kira. If I want to run, let's say, an Onyx model, then I can bring in one of the Onyx related packages. If I want to do anything data science related, I can bring in one of those packages. This will be a very interesting It'll be a very interesting journey. It'll be a very interesting and different approach. This is okay. By the way, what I'm doing, it's not something new. This is what people have been doing for years, for decades, in fact, using a bunch of different tools and frameworks to get things done. I was fortunate enough that my game dev journey began with a suite of tools, which is called a game engine. Um, And in my case, I was fortunate enough that it was in Unity. So that's how my game dev journey began. But like a lot of people in the past, they have done what I'm doing right now, what I'm planning on doing right now, which is using different frameworks and different libraries and different programs to get stuff done in terms of building one game. Rusty Rain looks so cool. I definitely want to try that out. Yes, it is. It is absolutely pretty. It is really cool. Another thing that I would definitely recommend trying out. So this is Rusty Rain. This is a Matrix Rain thing made um, in Rust. Then there's also this. I don't know if I closed it. No, here. I also recommend checking out this repo. This is a tool also made in Rust called Tarts. And this tool includes a bunch of different animation features. You have Matrix Rain, you have Conway's Game of Life, Maze Generation, Boyd's, 3D Cube, Crab, Rotating Donut, and Pipes. I like the Pipes one a lot, especially. And these are all animations that can be done within the terminal itself. And you can do this. I don't know if you're running Linux or Windows, but even if you are on Windows, if you're running this on Linux, then it should work just fine. But if you're running it on Windows, I think if you're running on Windows Terminal, then it should be fine. I haven't tested this out on Windows. You're gonna have to see how well it works out for you. Actually, yeah, I'm not entirely sure if this works on when you can test it out. You can try installing it and running it. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, then you can always uninstall it, because installing it is as simple as cargo install tarts. And then if you want to uninstall it, then cargo uninstall tarts. Yeah, pipes is definitely a classic. I found a pipes shell script. Well, I found a shell script for pipes. Like the entire animation is written in shell script. I want to see what the performance of that script is like, and if it's good, okay. If it's not, then I might go with like a C. Actually, dude, I might go with Tarts itself, because the version of pipes in Tarts is actually pretty great. It is awesome. It is cool. Okay, yeah, back to this. Back to this. So we're gonna cd into some repo o1, and then we're supposed to do git remote add local remote. Now, what's the link that I'm supposed to use? Okay, so this is interesting. I remember, and this was one of the reasons why I was kind of hoping that Gemini would suggest a local remote thing as well. Unfortunately, it didn't, and I kind of had to nudge it towards. I guess one of the reasons might be because like different people have different use cases for doing Git stuff, right? I guess a lot of people want to be pushing stuff and pulling stuff to and from GitHub itself, or maybe some other like completely remote repo. Not a whole lot of people might be wanting to do it on the local system, but reading the Git documentation, I found out that this is a special case. It does allow the file system stuff, and behind the scenes, it uses different tech to do that. It uses a different mechanism to do that. It doesn't use the same mechanism as if you're trying to connect to GitHub, for example. But yeah, you can use the same command, which is git remote add. You can use the same command for um, a remote that exists over the internet, and also a remote that exists on the same file system. The command just handles both of those situations differently, but you don't need to worry about the implementation, which is great. Maybe local directory path. Yeah, yeah. In this case, it's you just have to give it like the file system path. So what was it? Local. Oh shit! Wait, back up. Oh yeah, I called it some underscore repo local. No, remote. Some underscore repo remote. Okay, so I'm kind of curious here. Okay, so I was about to ask that how does Git know which repo it's supposed to add this remote to? And then I realized that yeah, I'm inside some repo o1, so it knows which, like that's how Git knows that this is the repo that you need to add it to. Okay, so I've added it. Actually, I'm curious about whether that change reflects in Siri as well. What was it, tab? No, it hasn't reflected in Siri yet. Let's go take a look at Git UI. Okay. No, it hasn't been reflected here either. So let's quit and open it up again. Nope. Still nothing. Wait, did the command execute successfully? Okay, it says that remote already exists. What if I just type git remote? that lists out the remotes. Okay. So okay, let's explore some of the options here. Let's see if there's okay. Yep, we have an issue here. So your Git course repository is now configured to push to and pull from. Wait, hold up. Did I miss something? Git remote add so and so. Okay. If you don't have if you don't have an initted repo, I guess it would throw an error. Do you need to connect to the remote for it to show up? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you need to connect. Actually, wait, I'm wondering if, because I remember previously when I'd looked for, when I'd tried to look for local options for setting up remotes and stuff, they did mention something about having to start up a Git daemon, but I'm not entirely sure if we need the Git daemon, if it's like a file system thing. Um, it could also just be an issue with Git UI itself. The fact that Git UI is not finding it, because Git remote is showing that local remote is there. Git remote remove. Okay, set branches, get URL. Okay, let's see what get URL brings. Okay, what if I gave it a path that doesn't exist? Okay, I think that's the issue. It's because it accepts whatever. This is currently pointing to something that doesn't exist. Let's hold on. So this is our remote. This is our empty repo. Okay, we'll copy this. Actually, no, wait. Yeah, okay. I'm wondering if I need to give it a proper path. Okay, so let's say git remote add local remote to let's try this. Scratch stuff, some repo o1 hyphen remote. Okay. I did git remote add and it added successfully. but Git UI is not showing the remote in the list. What's interesting is if I go into the shell and type git remote, it lists out the remote. Another interesting thing is that git remote add seems to work even if the path given um, doesn't really exist. I can definitely help with that. Those are two very good observations that get to the heart of so-and-so. Okay, Git not showing the remote. This is a common behavior when you make changes using the Git CLI while the so-and-so session is open. Okay, Git doesn't automatically detect every change made to the Git directory by external programs. To fix this, you need to refresh the Git view or the Git UI view. This forces the UI to so-and-so. Okay, that's definitely not the issue here. What you've observed is an intended feature of Git. When you run git remote add, Git Git doesn't actually connect to the URL or validate that it exists. It simply saves that remote's. It simply saves the remote's name and URL in your repository configuration file. Sorry, zoned out for a bit. The connection is only tested and the remote's existence is confirmed when you try to perform a network operation like git push or git pull. Okay, I tried restarting Git UI. It still doesn't show the remote. How do I test things out using the CLI alone? It seems like Git UI is having a persistent issue with its cache. That's a good time to go back to the source and use the Git CLI directly. All the Git UI commands were just a visual wrapper around these commands anyway, so you'll be doing the exact same thing. Okay, cool. Verify the remote. First, let's make sure the remote you added is correctly configured. You can list all remotes with this command from within your Git UI course directory. Let's do that. Let's um, git remote v. Why are there two of each? Oh, fetch and pull. Okay. Fetch and push. So pull from it, see if it appears. Yeah, I'm now I'm gonna try and do that. This will show you the name of your remote and its path, confirming that Git knows about it. Then make a local commit. Next, create a change to push. Well, we're going to be pushing everything at this point. We don't need to make one change. Push your changes. Git push local remote main. Okay, that should work then. So what I'm looking at right now is remote O2, local remote O2. So git push local remote O2. main or is it master in this case? I think it's master in this case. Wait, did it work? That's crazy. Okay, so you have to push at least once in order to have the thing appear. I need to go back to the Git UI thing to read up on this and understand what's going on. Yeah, yeah. I need to go back and read up on this. Though I am curious now, what if I made a copy? What if I made a clone of this repo elsewhere and then did a change there and then pushed the change from there to here? Well, no, pushed the change from there to the remote, and then I tried to pull the change from here. What would that look like? Actually, you know what? Hold up. I'm curious about how it's going to handle the thing that doesn't exist. Local one, I think. Yeah, one doesn't exist. Okay, there we go. It could not read from remote repository. Cool, great. It couldn't read from the remote repo. What if I did this then? Everything's up to date. So this would have worked. So it does work. The dot dot thing works. It doesn't need like a full path. Um, that being said, now there's probably going to be multiple in the list. Yeah, now there's multiple because there's two remotes. A reference with that name already exists. I wonder what this looks like in Siri. Does it show up at all? Oh, okay. It shows that it pushed to both of these. Let me bring it up here. Yeah, this is what it looks like. So the head is currently pointing to master and that remote and the other remote as well. Okay. All right. Cool. I clearly need to do more research on this. There's lots more experimentation that I need to do. But this is the concept of remote. I need to wait. I need to tell Gemini. Okay, so after pushing, wait, no. Okay, so the push was successful. I tried pushing to the remote with the right path and the remote with uh, a non-existent path. The remote with the right path succeeded, while the other one failed. After pushing, when I went back to Git UI, now I could see the remote in the list. Explain. Okay, so it's given two responses. I think I'll go with the longer one, maybe. Or we could go with the shorter one. That's fine. We'll go with the shorter one. Okay, that's great. What you've just seen is Git and Git UI's lazy behavior in action. Here's what happened. Git's lazy validation. You've discovered the key difference between adding a remote and using a remote. When you ran git remote add, Git simply wrote the name and URL into a text file in your .git directory. It didn't care if the URL was fake or not. That's why it succeeded. Even if even with the non-existent path. However, when you ran git push, Git had to perform a network operation. At this point, it checked if the remote URL was valid. It found the local it found the local remote and successfully pushed to it. When you tried to push to the fake remote, the operation failed because Git couldn't find the non-existent location. This is where the validation finally occurs. Git UI's refreshing behavior. Git UI didn't show your remote immediately because it only reads the configuration file when it starts. That's okay. No, this is not this is this is not giving me the accurate reason. I need to go and find out from the repo why this happened. Like, what was this behavior? I'm trying to understand what exactly was going on there. I need to go to the Git UI repo. But in the meantime, actually, for now, not even in the meantime, for now, give me a second. Let me do this and do this because yesterday I forgot to do that other thing, and then yeah, just a second. Okay. All right. So here's what we're gonna do. Okay. Uh, we are gonna go raid somebody. That's gonna be it for today's stream. Today was close to 2 hours, which I'm super happy about. Yeah, I'm super happy about that. It could have been longer, but it was my mistake. I started a little bit late. But yeah, I mean that it is what it is. We made some progress. We also were able to chit chat for a good hour. Zainab, thanks for hanging out and chatting. Anyone else who might have been lurking in the chat, thanks for hanging out and chatting. Hopefully, I'll stream again tomorrow. I'm glad that I'm finally exploring this branching and remotes stuff in Git. So once I'm done with this, we might actually jump to Rust stuff, or we're going to be doing more data science stuff on stream. Let me see which of the two I want to do, because now I have to do both of these things. So I have to equally divide my time between these two things. But yeah, that's going to be it for today's stream. I hope you guys have a nice day, and I'll see you all next time. Peace.